Hello, hello, and welcome on into Spinning a Yarn's Tale, a fiber arts podcast about culture and history brought to you by You and I Yarns in Chehalis, Washington. My name's Blair.
I'm Denise.
And this week we're going to be talking about
Turkey.
Not the bird, but the place.
The country.
The country.
Beautiful.
But before we get into all that, what are you working on this week, Denise?
So, I've been pretty busy in general, but I've been making a quilt for my baby, and I don't like it.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You don't like the quilt?
I don't like the colors. I like the pattern. Like, I didn't make up the pattern. Somebody else did, and I pay for it, and I made the whole quilt, and then I was like, the colors just don't work together. So...
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I gotta make another quilt.
I'm so sorry.
And I'm knitting on some socks. But yeah, I haven't had much time to do knitting.
Oh,
So that's kind of sad.
that is a little sad.
Yeah. What are you working on?
Well, a little bit earlier, I was working on crocheting an Afghan. I got bored, and now I'm knitting a hat.
You're going back and forth, yeah.
Like I said, I'm not very project monogamous.
Yeah, me
I get
neither.
bored, so I like to have choices. I like options.
Yeah, and then you can put something down and come back to it with renewed energy.
Exactly.
Yes, sounds good. Okay, so let's talk about turkey this week. And why are we talking about turkey this week? Maybe we should start with that.
Yeah, we're covering Turkey today because we are focusing on Turkish yarns for the Pacific Northwest Yarn Crawl this year. And the yarn crawl is happening May 4th through the 7th, which is going to be fun. There's a bunch of shops. A few of them are local to us. Like our local yarn store, Jorsted Creek, Black Sheep Yarn Boutique, and of course you and I were participating. And it's going to be fun. I like to explain it to people like we're having a bar crawl, but it's for yarn,
Yeah.
you know? Mm-hmm. But we're going to be covering Turkish yarns for our store. So we're doing Earth Yarns this year. That's the brand we're putting to the forefront. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so we're going to cover Turkey a little bit to kind of
have
some background to that.
Yeah, some extra depth to this yarn crawl.
Yeah. So to jump right into Turkey, we're going to kind of start with the thing that we couldn't find as much information about, which is the Turkish spindle. Turkish spindles are, as they sound, they originated in the Anatolian Peninsula, which is part of Turkey, and it wasn't always the way they look wasn't always that way. There were, of course, like bone spindles there and all of that, but the titular four-armed Turkish spindle kind of originated there. Mm-hmm. It's said to be a little similar to Central Asian spindles because the Turkish people were nomadic, and it's said that they came from Central Asia into the Middle East type deal. So that's kind of what it is. And a Turkish spindle, for those who don't know, it's a spindle, a drop spindle. Not really, because a drop spindle is different, but it's a spinning spindle. And it's got a long shaft that is tapered. And then you have these four arms it's 2 blocks of wood with a hole in the center that create these arms. And then you slide those into each other and onto the shaft of the spindle. And it creates a really nice, even spinning motion, even when you're walking type deal. It's really nice. It's my kind of favorite spindle. If I have to choose, I like them a lot. And usually they're really decorated. Traditional Turkish spindles have lots of intricate wood carving designs in them. a lot of pretty like wood stains and things like that. They're really gorgeous. We have a few pictures for you in our resources this week if you want to look at some older Turkish spindles. They're really nice. Another thing that the Turkish were really, really into knitting were batiks. They were really into knitting socks. And these were either really long socks that went up over your knees or really short socks that you wore inside. And those are really cool.
Almost like slippers, or?
Yeah, kind of like slippers.
Huh.
But these batiks were knit because the Turks were nomads. So when they were traveling, their feet would get cold, and when they were inside their house, they didn't want to bring the dirt in. And so they wore these to keep their feet warm and to soften the ground a little. They also had huge rugs that they would put in their tents, but we're going to cover that a little more later. And these batiks and the socks and things like that, they were heavily inspired by the rugs that were being made at the time as well. And they have a huge meaning. They have huge meaning. Socks can have different patterns and they can tell different stories. So these different motifs in the patterns, which are really cool looking, all of them are interlocking and all of them connect to each other in some way. And they're meant to be that way so that you can't tell where the beginning is and where the end is. But they tell a story through the repetition of the pattern.
Nice.
And motifs.
So this is color work, you mean?
Oh, it's color work,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But those are Turkish batiks. They have the interlocking geometric designs. A lot of them were used with a form of intarsia and things like that. Some of these motifs have names, which are really, really cool. There's the apple slice, the sergeant stripes, the watch chain, earrings, beetle, nightingale, moth. They're all named after things, and they have a meaning to them, each individual one. They told stories like family stories, so family histories. They told legends or fairy tales oftentimes. They were also worn just culturally. A woman would wear a specific kind of sock if she was out looking for marriage, or if she had been proposed to, or if she was getting married. And it's actually still a traditional gift at a Turkish wedding today to receive a pair of socks. Just because it's a huge part of their culture. So, and they're still really intricately knitted and oftentimes hand spun, because the spinning and knitting and weaving culture and crochet culture in Turkey is really, really, really big and really active. And like I covered before, there's the ones that cover your feet, and then there's the ones that cover your knees. Most of the socks, along with color work, had tassels as well, either on the back of the leg or on the toe, oftentimes. It's how they bound off the toe sometimes, which was really cool.
Oh,
yeah. And the toes were knitted as a wedge, common to a Western style top-down toe that we know. So when you're going down, you decrease evenly on both sides.
Yeah.
And it creates kind of this triangle with a blunted edge. And that's kind of how their socks were. There was vertical intarsia in the construction, as well as stranded color work, just above that toe band, or that toe area. And the heels of these socks are actually where it gets really interesting. They're a mixture of both knitting and crochet.
Interesting.
Yeah, aren't they so fun?
Yeah.
So it was a heel flap, except it was kind of on the bottom of your foot. And then they would shape it up at the top and do decreases in the center to create the cup.
To get the,
Instead of doing short rows.
Oh.
And it was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And there was, after this, decreases and stuff like that, the remaining few heel stitches were bound off and then picked up in a double row of single crochets. So they would bind off all of the stitches on that heel and then pick everything up, crochet it, and then continue upward
That's
with
amazing.
the rest of the sock, picking
Yeah.
up the crocheted stitches with a needle.
And that wouldn't be too bulky?
No, it was only like 2 rows. 2 rows
okay,
of
yeah.
single crochet, I think it said.
That's cool. I would want to try that.
This is where, like, it's kind of cool in construction, and you can see the ingenuity in all of these different styles of sock. There's actually tons of books out there specifically on Turkish socks and patterns for Turkish socks, so you can make a traditional one. And I really want to get one of those books because I want to make a pair of traditional Turkish socks. But those rows of crochet, they were also always done in contrasting colors because it was meant to be decorative and seen by people, because they wore kind of like sandals and boots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, like, it was meant to be seen.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
It was also really cool because back in the day, they didn't care about, like, their stitches matching up. So, like, at the end of a row, if you didn't complete, like, a motif, like a pattern repeat, they just kind of cut it off and started again. And it was meant to create, like, a visible seam.
Yeah.
They just really didn't care. They didn't care about stitch count.
Interesting.
Which is, like, kind of fun. These batiks also were often crocheted completely in similar ways. And the knitting style that they used is actually kind of interesting. It's kind of similar to Portuguese knitting, Turkish style knitting.
Oh.
They wrap the yarn around their neck and then they knit with that, and that's how they tension it. And the socks were knit on 5 DPNs, and it was kind of fun. They say that the reason that Portuguese knitting and Turkish knitting are so similar is because they both think that they kind of took it from Peru because they were nomadic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Turkish were, like, in there doing fun stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And that's really what we have for as far as socks. I do have a fun fact. Originally, if you want to know, the Turkish fez was hand knit.
Instead of?
What it is now.
What is a fez? I feel
A fez? You don't know what a fez is?
No.
So it's like a little hat that's a cone. They're usually about that big. They sit like this on top of your head. And it's a cone, and they have a flat top. And they normally have a tassel.
Oh. Yeah, okay. So that, for me, that's like a stereotypical hat, if I think about that one.
Yeah.
And they were knitted?
Yeah.
How did they stay upright?
I believe they were felted as well.
Oh, interesting. That's cool.
So they were hand knit and then felted and then worn.
Stable.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But to kind of, like, jump to a different topic, we're going to talk about Turkish rugs now. Mm-hmm. So Turkish rugs, everybody, when you think of a Turkish rug, think of those really big decorative rugs with the tassels on the ends, and they have, like, the big flowers and things like that, or, like, the geometric shapes, and they're normally red and gold and, like, blue.
Yeah.
That is an Anatolian rug, right? It's also a Turkish rug. Mm-hmm. Because Anatolia, or Anatolian, is a peninsula.
Yeah.
It's a location. They go back to the origins of Turkish people, these rugs. They go all the way back. Because the Turkish people would travel, and they were nomadic, right? They traveled from Central Asia all over, going west, I believe.
Yeah.
Towards the Middle East and all of that. They traveled, and they had these rugs because they were easy to carry, and they would set them out in their tents to create a comfortable living space.
Oh.
And there's 2 types of rugs. There was kilim, I believe I'm saying that correctly, kilim, and carpet. Carpets are different than kilim. Carpets have a pile And they were meant for comfort, right? So when you think of a rug, the pile is the stuff that sticks up from it.
Yeah.
Like, if you think of a shag carpet, the shag part, that's a pile. And the kilim, they were woven to be flat. So they didn't have any pile to them.
Okay.
And those were more for practical reasons, for keeping places clean, etc. And they were often much smaller. The carpets were meant to be big and cover large areas so you could have like comfort. We have evidence of these carpets being found as early as 400 BC. So they've been around for forever.
Yeah. They stayed preserved?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think I have pictures of them in our show notes.
Cool.
And you can take a look at like some of them in a museum. And they're, of course, worn because they're old and they were used. They weren't just for show.
They look brand new.
Oh, yeah. I bought them last week. No. So we have evidence of these carpets in the kilim from as early as 400 BC. And most people say that because the Turkish people were nomadic, they were the ones who brought things like rugs and carpets to the Middle East. And it was just kind of like it spread from there. After that, there was the Seljuk kilim. The early example was found in the 12th century, which is a different type of rug, different color work, all that kind of stuff. These were the ones that we kind of closer to what we know as a Turkish rug. Okay. They were red, blue, all of that in color. But after that, we get closer and closer to the 16th century and the 12th century, or well, the Seljuk was 12th century. We're getting closer and closer to the 16th century. And that's when we start getting these rugs. So the English become fascinated with them. You can see them in all of these old Renaissance paintings and things like that because they were beautiful, beautiful works of art and very practical. So they were also kind of at a point for the English a status symbol.
Yeah.
If you had a Turkish rug, you were rich, basically. You were very rich, you know? It's also in the 16th century that the rugs change again. So you've got people buying them and they're going to rich people, but they're also, the style has changed yet again. And it becomes the popular Ottoman rug, the Ottoman style, because of the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
And then from there, they become like wildly popular, like super popular. And it stays that way up into the 19th century.
That's a long time.
But now that we've talked about the history of these rugs, let's kind of get into the nitty gritty of like what they are. These rugs are often made out of wool or cotton because they're hard-wearing fibers that last. And sometimes, very, very, not very often, sometimes they were made with a little bit of silk. So not an entire rug made of silk, but sometimes there would be silk detailing. They're woven on what we know as vertical looms. So it's kind of like a traditional loom, but it stands upright. I don't believe it has any pedals, so like any of the up and down bits. It's more similar to a tapestry loom, but it has moving parts to it.
Oh, it does.
To make it so you can move your rug up and down and get it out of the way. And I think there's a lever to change, like...
Yeah, the position of the warp.
Yeah, the position of the warp. The carpets were woven by wrapping individual thread around the warps and then cutting the ends to make the pile. And then you would have a strand of thread that would go through that and lock things into place. And that's how we got them. And usually They measured it out by 2 centimeters, which is about the size of your thumbnail.
Yeah.
And that's where they would cut. And it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
These, some of these were woven wet. This was more common in kilim rather than carpets. They were woven wet to compact the fiber, make it really, really
dense,
so that they could take it places and it would be hard wearing, you know? On top of the fact that they used hard wearing fibers, they used hard wearing techniques to weave those fibers. They had really cool tools for this. There was no beater on their loom, so they didn't beat it with like what we know as like, when I think of the loom, I think of that bit that goes back and forth.
Yeah, the heddle.
Didn't have that. They had these claw-like things that they would stick in there, and they would do it manually and like push the fiber down. And I'm doing a motion that nobody can see. Because I watched somebody weave a traditional rug. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I really thought it was really cool.
That sounds a lot like tapestry weaving in general, because they, like, on a small tapestry loom, you can even use like a fork to push it down.
Yeah.
I suppose
it's a little bit like that, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Tapestry weaving is way more simplified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And on top of the knotting, it wasn't just like you took individual strands. You would wrap them around and then like tie knots on like the beginning and end. Sometimes there were specific ways that they would knot the yarn.
Yeah.
And it was specific to different regions of Turkey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
From like how people taught other people to do it or something?
Yeah. So there was... The only ones I can remember are 2 of them, and I can't remember the names. And one of them was like you would start at the beginning, wrap over one strand of warp, go around, wrap it around twice, go back, and then over one, and then wrap it around again. And then you would have your piece like that you would cut.
Yeah.
And this worked because these were woven on really, 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 really fine thread. Mm-hmm. With a lot of like warp threads.
Yeah.
So there was like a ton of space to get like different knots in there.
Yeah.
And then the other one was just you wrapped it around the beginning one, you wrapped it around the second one, and then you knotted it and it was done.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And those are like the 2 that I remember.
That must have taken so long.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It did, because there's hundreds of different motifs in these rugs. And also, women would teach their children, their daughters, to weave. And they would take months to years weaving their first rug before they could work on things that would, like, go towards other people.
Yeah.
But you had choices when you were designing your first rug. There was literally hundreds of different motifs. You had ones that would ward off danger. There was some to make, like, bring good luck, some to symbolize a happy marriage. Like, I remember there's one, it's the evil eye.
Yeah.
They have a motif for that.
Yeah.
And it's really, really cool. And then there's a motif that goes in tandem with the evil eye.
Oh.
Because you want to be protected from the evil eye.
Yeah, like the warding off of the evil eye.
Things like that. And it was really, really cool.
Nice.
These motifs all have the same names. So, like, all of these have different variations of the same motif. And they all have the same name.
Yeah.
So, like, you could have one evil eye and then another from a different region.
Yeah.
Or, like, a different tribe.
Represent the same thing.
But they represent the same thing.
Yeah.
So if you're looking up a specific motif and you're not finding it, just keep looking.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, if you know it as a name, you're probably just getting one of the variations of it. But again, like I said before, women were the main artisans of the time for weaving rugs, and they still are culturally. women would learn to weave these rugs from a very, very young age. And like I said, take months to years to complete their first rug. Carpets were still and are often woven together by multiple women.
Yeah.
So you can see two to three to four women sitting on one bench in front of one loom, each working on a motif.
Whoa, yeah.
Like working on a section of it.
That's cozy.
And for those huge rugs, like I know there's one in, I believe, the English Palace. I believe I read somewhere close to 10 to 20 women were all working on one loom.
Oh.
And they had to make it custom.
Wow. For no money.
I don't know. I don't know if they paid them. They probably did.
I hope so, yeah.
I hope so. Well, no, the women got paid. I don't know if the English paid the Turkish.
Yeah. We never know.
Well, they might not have. But these carpets are still woven by multiple women. It's like it's a really big community thing.
Yeah.
And it's really still big culturally for like Turkish people to appreciate artisan work. And that's a huge thing. And there is a saying to go along with that. In Turkey, they say, I can't say it in Turkish, but it translates to, may your hands be healthy, which is said to the craftspeople in hopes that they can continue to create beautiful art. It's a sign of appreciation.
I like that.
Yeah. And it's meant to be like, may you live a long time and continue to bring joy to other people making art.
May your hands be healthy.
Yeah. May your hands be healthy, Denise.
Yeah, yours too, Lara.
Thank you. And I barely even touched on it. But these colors were all dyed naturally.
Oh, wow.
In the rugs.
That's cool.
Dyes these days are still very traditional. So even in the form of traditional rugs, they aren't using a lot of acid dyes. They use onion skins, tobacco, prunes. I don't know how to say that one. Do you know? Cochineal? I
don't know.
Saffron in very special occasions because saffron is expensive.
Very expensive.
Madder root and a few more. I'm sure that they had indigo for blue and things like that. Or
I hope so.
I hope so.
For them.
Make it nice and easy. Well, maybe they didn't because they were, they're a nomadic people. And how do you ferment?
Yeah.
How do you ferment indigo on the go?
Well, maybe they had the other thing, the
dyer's woad.
Yes.
Maybe. I don't know where the dyer's woad came from. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Where did it originate?
Because they had blue in the rugs.
Yeah. They did.
They must have had something.
They had something that was blue.
Something was blue.
Something. But that's kind of really all I have in terms of Turkey.
Yeah. Cool. That was a lot.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
I think so, at least.
I must say it was hard for me to find things about Turkey because I would constantly get like knitting patterns for turkeys, like the animal.
Yeah. For me, it was a lot of finding specific things that were related to Turkey and then looking it up by name.
Right, yeah. Going from there.
I found batiks by chance, and then I couldn't find a lot of good information on them. So I went to my school's library.
That's nice.
And I found a couple really good scholarly articles on them, which are in our resources. And then for the rugs, there was a wide breadth of knowledge. I watched videos. I read personal stories of people getting socks from Turkey, like traditional socks, all of that stuff.
Cool.
And it was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's fun.
It was a fun one to research. I had a good time.
Yeah.
But I think that brings us to the end of our rope here with Turkey.
Yay!
Woo! So,
go check out the yarn crawl.
Oh my god, again. Check out the yarn crawl. It's going on from May 4th to the 7th this year, 2023. You can go to their Pacific Northwest Yarn Crawl, shortened to PNW. So P as in Paul, N as in
Nico
or Noro, the yarn. W as in West. So PNWYarnCrawl.com.
Cool.
And yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of stores.
There's, oh my gosh, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 12 stores.
Woo.
That are participating.
You got to hit them all.
We don't know at the time that we're recording, we don't know the theme yet, but we are going to have a theme and it'll be so good. Come party with us. We always have for the yarn crawl, we have a standout cutty with sheep that you can take pictures in. So put your face in the place of the sheep.
Wonderful.
Yes.
You could be sheep for a day.
You could be sheep. Come take pictures. Come see us. I'll probably be there, at least on Friday.
I'm going to go try and hit all the stores.
Are you?
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah.
Ooh. You're braver than I am. I hate driving.
I know, yeah. My husband was like, we should hit all the stores. I was like, really? Do you want that? And he was like, yeah. So he's driving. I'm not.
But your husband likes to felt.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe he's looking for that that felting supply.
He's looking for fiber, yeah.
But anyway, this has been Spinning a Yarn's Tale. My name's Blair.
My name's Denise.
And this is a Fiber Arts History and Culture podcast brought to you by You and I Yarns in Chehalis, Washington. Woo! We'll see you next time.
Yes, next time.
Bye.
Bye.